Okay, good morning, welcome back to another vid. Merry Christmas. Well, depending on when you're watching it. If it's still December, then Merry Christmas. If not, then Merry whatever month it may be. But yeah, Christmas. Got my Christmas sweater on. Check this out. How ridiculous is this? With a little bow there. Absolutely crazy. And also, obviously, got my mug of steaming. I don't know if you saw that there. The steam just came flying off. Hot chocolate. So it's still too hot, so I'm probably not going to have a sip on it, but I might do. We'll see. So yeah, I've got a few records. I'm going to show you what they are, quite obviously. The reason why I wanted to do this video now, as opposed to waiting several days after Christmas, or maybe into January, is that there are a couple of Christmas albums on here. I'll say Christmas. One's more kind of winter related, to be honest. But then you may be watching it in January, or any time after, so I guess it doesn't really matter when I make the vid. But I'm doing it today, and today is Christmas Eve. So, yes, Merry Christmas, like I say. By the time it gets uploaded, it's probably going to be Christmas Day at the earliest, I guess, because of the time difference and all that kind of stuff in between here and the UK, or wherever you may be watching. Anyway, I digress. So the first one up, and it comes with this nice wrapping paper as well, as part of the record, as part of the deal. I didn't buy it individually or separately, but it's this album. It's Kylie Christmas. Now, for whatever reason, same with the next one, actually, but for whatever reason, this only came out 2 years ago, but it's really expensive. I mean, stupidly expensive. Now, I've seen copies fetching over $100 for this. I think I paid around about $55, and I bought it direct from Australia. So I had to import it. It sold out in America. I had a look on Amazon UK, eBay UK. Couldn't get it there, unless it's come back into stock, of course. But yeah, it seems to be fetching kind of the best part of pushing $100. But if you shop around, then, as I did, you get about $55. But it's still pretty expensive for a Christmas record. And a new one at that. One that only came out, like I say, 2 years ago. So yeah, there's, as you'd expect for a Christmas album from Kylie, it's essentially a covers album. There's a few duets on here. Iggy Pop, James Corden spring to mind. James Corden. I'm not the biggest fan of him, I've got to be honest. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but there's something about him, just I don't know what it is, just winds me up. But yeah, songs like 2,000 Miles by Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders. There's a song on here, I think there's 3 songs actually off the top of my head, which are originals, which Kylie has co-wrote. One of them, I believe, with Chris Martin. And I think it's Every Day's Like Christmas, which is side B, the opening track to side B. I think that's what that one is off the top of my head. So yeah, 2,000 Miles, Santa Baby, which of course is a classic. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Yeah, Frank Sinatra, I think, yeah, that features Frank Sinatra, that one. So, yeah, just a traditional kind of Christmas album in a sense of covers, with a few new ones thrown in for good measure. Now, I know it did receive a bit of a lukewarm reception, but I think it's alright. It's certainly not my favourite Kylie album, and it's certainly not my favourite Christmas album, but really, all in all, it's not too bad. And it puts you in that festive mood as well, and that's what it's all about. And I did want to buy it a couple of years ago, but again, like I say, it was sold out. Really hard to get. So 2 years later, I've got it. So again, it is good, but it's a little bit throwaway. Not literally, because it's a $100 record, or $55 for me. Next one up is another Christmas record, or more, I guess, a winter record is the best way to describe this. There are a couple of Christmas songs on here, but it's definitely more winter themed. And I think I saw an interview with this guy, who I'll reveal in a second, a good few years ago, because when did this come out? So 2009 this came out, and this is another one which can fetch a crazy amount of money. I've not seen many on eBay, but whenever I do, again, you could be looking at the best part of $100 or more. For whatever reason, same with the Kylie one, maybe it's because it was like a limited print run, although why, I'm not really sure. It's kind of strange, to be honest. But anyway, that individual is Sting, and the album is called If on a Winter's Night. Again, I always say this, but apologies for the glare, with the reflection off the camera and the light outside and all that kind of stuff. So what you get with this are a lot of traditional kind of Christmas songs or winter songs, folk songs. And the interesting thing about this, I think pretty much for all the record, or certainly for the majority of it, Sting, he sings in his native northeast accent. If anybody knows or doesn't know, he's from Newcastle, essentially. So that I think the voice that you kind of hear him say or use in interviews is, I'd hesitate to say isn't his own accent. It's something which I think he's just developed over the years. But his real accent will be, well, he's a Geordie, essentially. He's from Newcastle. So, and I have heard him speak in that before, in that accent, albeit for a bit of fun on interviews and stuff. But it's kind of interesting how people sort of switch their accents like that. And I guess it can only be for especially going back many, many years, maybe to fit in that little bit more, I guess. I mean, I went through that a little bit, nowhere near the same as this, but in a similar sense that when we moved from the north to the south, I know I had to change a few words because the kids, when I moved down, didn't understand the word I was saying. So, and I get that in America as well. So I've got to slow down, I've got to enunciate. But when I'm kind of really animated, the accent really comes out. But if I'm just talking normally, then it's quite almost, yeah, like I enunciate. I think I sometimes do it on YouTube as well. And when I'm away from YouTube, it's like I speak, it's not differently. Oh, keep digging. But you know what I mean? Sometimes you've got to put on a certain accent. Not so much put it on, maybe slightly change it to fit in. So wherever you are, people will understand you. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think. So yeah, but this is a really good album. And came out in 2009, like I say, a lot of traditional songs on here. Things like Gabriel's Message, or Gabriel's Message. Gabriel? Gabriel. Soul Cake, which is a really good song. I think that is a local Newcastle song, Geordie song. I think that's what I remember him saying. So yeah, some really good songs. Very kind of haunting in sounds, very traditional, stripped back for the most part, but really good. And I urge you to check it out. Now, what I will always do, and so therefore I'm going to clearly be doing it in this vid, in a description box, if you check out the links, you'll see a song. It's not going to be the best song in the world, or even the best song off the album, but it will be a song from each album, just to give you a bit of a taste, a bit of a teaser. So, yeah, if you're interested, then please check out that Sting record, because it's good. But really, I think, much like for me with the Kylie one, it's one which I'm only really going to play around about Christmas or the kind of winter period. You know, in January time, they're records I'm not going to play. The start of November, well, maybe the end of November, and certainly throughout December, then those two records are the ones that I tend to put on quite a lot. Because, well, it's Christmas, of course. So there's a few left. There are a couple right at the end which I have shown before, but not on a pickup vid, so I'm going to kind of maybe briefly go through those. Now, the next one up is an album which has just come out about a month or so ago, and I think it's the band's first album for the best part of 15 or 16 years. I think that, yeah, 2001 it would have been, if truth be told. And that album and that band, it's Shed 7, and the album's called Instant Pleasures. Now, you'll see that this one is signed. Now, Shed 7 being a big band, obviously, from the Britpop days. So their last album in 2001, A Truth Be Told. Now, if truth be told, I didn't think too much of it, if I'm honest. There's a couple of good tracks. But by that point, that whole Britpop movement, 2001, for me anyway, I'd started to move away from it. And, it just, I was into a lot of other things. So I was still into that kind of indie kind of music, but I'd long moved away from that mid to late 90s Britpop sound. But from that era, Shed 7 are one of my favourites, along with the obvious ones like, you know, Oasis and Blur and Pulp, and, well, the list does go on, of course. So yeah, the first album in 16 years, this one signed, as I say. I bought it from Pledge Music. In fact, I pre-ordered it, essentially. I paid for it, going back, I think, in January or February of last year. Now, at the time, there was no release date. They didn't say when it was going to be coming out, other than sometime in 2017. So it took almost a year. And then by the time it came out, it took like an extra 2 or 3 weeks for me to get it, compared to people in the UK. Because I'm on Twitter as well, and a load of people on Twitter, people I'm following and people I'm not following, were putting up pictures and talking about the album. And I was like, well, I've not got mine. So I guess for whatever reason, it took an extra 2 or 3 weeks to arrive to America, which is a little bit lazy. Crazy, really. But the good thing about the album, apart from it being signed, which is nice by all the bands, it's a bit of a return to form, well, quite a big way, actually, to old Shed 7. So like I say, I'd started to move away from them big time by the time they released their last album, which didn't do particularly well. I guess, obviously, given the fact that it's taken them 16 years to do another one. But this one, it really kind of almost pays homage back to the mid-90s. In a way, there are a few tracks on here which sounds like it could be from albums like, maybe not so much Change Giver in 94, but maybe a Maximum High in 95, maybe something like that. What was the other one they had, which had She Left Me on Friday? I think that was their third album. Let It Ride, I think. Was that 98? Around about that time. So again, maybe around about that time, a couple of these songs could fit onto that era as well. Or from this album could fit onto that album, I should say. From that era. But yeah, so for example, Room in My House, Nothing to Live Down, It's Not Easy. Those 3 songs, and those 3 songs coincidentally are the ones which open up the album. I say coincidentally, maybe that was deliberate to maybe say to people, hey, look, this is Shed 7. We sound just like we did back when we were really big. So maybe that was a deliberate thing to do. But the rest of the album is pretty much like that as well. They're all songs, well, for the most part, that could fit onto a mid to late 90s Shed 7 stroke Britpop record. Like I say, with maybe a few songs which are more modernised, which are like more of a mature Shed 7 in 2017, nearly 2018 kind of period in their lives. So yeah, it's a really decent album, actually. I think it got to number 8 in the UK charts, which is nothing to be, sniggered at, really. That's a pretty good achievement. So, yeah, now, I should say as well, I'm not going to get it out. It's actually a really nice red vinyl. Maybe I'll show it in another vid. But it's got one of these protective seals on. I'm going to have to take it off and just take my word for it. It's a nice looking record. And the fact that it's signed, I think it was an extra like $2 for the signed version. And I just thought, well, for the sake of having the signatures on, we might as well do it. It's kind of nice. I'm not massively into signatures. Not really. I used to be when I was a kid. I used to love them. But I'm not really that bothered. But if we're going to talk just a few dollars difference, then well, yeah. If it was like an extra $50, I probably wouldn't have. Definitely wouldn't have done. But for an extra $2, $3, $4, $5, absolutely. So a few left, and the first one is an absolute classic, a real tragedy in a sense, because it's George Michael, Listen Without Prejudice, or technically speaking, Listen Without Prejudice. I think it's volume 1, isn't it? It doesn't say it on it. Oh, yes, it does. Right down the bottom there. Because initially, the plan was to release volume 2, but of course he had his big legal problems with Sony Music, so that never happened in the end. But yeah, tragic in the sense that, of course, it would have been, well, a year, wouldn't it? A year to the day tomorrow, Christmas Day, that George Michael passed away, and it was just unbelievably sad. I mean, for me personally, out of all these celebrity deaths that have happened ever, I think the one that affected me most, and when I say affected me, I wasn't depressed, but it did affect me. I was sad about it. But the one that affected me the most was, without question, George Michael. I think not just because I really liked his music, but also it takes me back to being a kid. Some of my earliest memories listening to things like, Wham, Freedom, and the Wham version, not the George Michael one, and things like Club Tropicana, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Everything She Wants, all the classics basically. And seeing them on Top of the Pops when I was a kid. And apart from that, he just seemed like a really nice guy. And all these stories coming out after he passes away of him giving money anonymously, like tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, to people of all sorts of, in all sorts of incidents and situations where they desperately needed money or hope or help or whatever it was. And yeah, really nice stories coming out, but he didn't want the attention. And it's a real shame that he had a lot of, insecurities. But a brilliant artist, one of my favourite artists of all time. And this album is just incredible. And to pass away on Christmas Day as well, with Last Christmas, Wham, the Wham song. I mean, the timing? It's never good timing, but that is just unbelievable. So I think that song, Last Christmas by Wham, I think will always have that kind of bittersweet kind of thing to it. It's kind of really, I know, it's really sad, isn't it? But a brilliant, brilliant artist. And this album, there's so many passionate songs on here. You could tell he was putting his all into it. Praying for Time, Freedom 90, again, not to be confused with the Wham song Freedom, which, incidentally, Oasis ripped off. If you check out Fade Away, which I think was a B-side to, what was it a B-side to? All Around the World? I could be wrong on that one. No, it wasn't All Around the World. That was Flashbacks and the Fame, wasn't it? What's Fade Away? Was it Stay Young? No, it wasn't. It would have been one off, definitely, maybe. Maybe it's Supersonic. Might have been Supersonic B-side. If it wasn't, well, I'll put the corrections in the description box. But yeah, if you check out that song, Fade Away, by Oasis, written by Noel Gallagher, it basically rips off Freedom by Wham, basically. But I love them both, Oasis and George Michael. So yeah, They Won't Go When I Go, which I think is a Stevie Wonder cover. But this one, for me, is way, way, way better. And Cowboys and Angels, Waiting for That Day, Heal the Pain's a really good song. It's just a fantastic record. If you've never really gotten into George Michael, and so to speak, you really should. It's a fantastic, fantastic album and an amazing artist. And so sad, it really is. But yeah, get that album. It's brilliant. You will not regret it. I promise you. Kind of. Next up is an album from 1992, and I love this album. If you want to chill out to a record, dance vibes, dance pop, with an amazingly well-known artist, of course, and a brilliant one at that. It's Madonna and it's Erotica. Like I say, it came out in 1992. It also came out, I think it coincided with a sex book, which I think from memory was really silver in colour throughout, with like the old-fashioned kind of binder. things on the side. I don't know what you call them, where you kind of open the book, the big round things. It's a rubbish description, but if you know what I mean, then you know what I mean. Maybe I'll put a picture of it if I can find it, if not, whatever. But I remember a friend of mine called Colin brought that sex book of Madonna into school one day. Now, we would have been, I guess, around about sort of 14 years of age, and we told the teacher, we were like, Colin, what have you got in your bag? And the teacher wasn't taking the hint for ages, because she just thought that, you know, we were just having a laugh. And we kept saying it, Colin, what's that in your bag? What's that book? We were trying to get him into trouble. It was terrible, really. And eventually the teacher was like, Colin, what have you got in your bag? And then she went over and had a look, and I think he ended up getting in big trouble for that. But what can you do? We were kids. But of course, that was we had a look at the book first before we told on him, and it was a very revealing picture, or book with very revealing pictures, as you can imagine. A sex book with Madonna. Very controversial. A lot of the stuff that was in there was, to a 14-year-old, which is amazing. It's the greatest book of all time. So, yeah, very controversial around about that time, especially Madonna, wasn't she? But this is a really good album. Now, listening to this album has really pushed me recently, i.e. the last few days, quite frankly, listening to things like acid house music, you know, that kind of early 90s stuff. I mean, this is more like, obviously, dance music, but there's a semblance, I guess, elements of acid house in it. So things like, you know, Erotica, Fever, Deeper and Deeper, a really good album, and classic early 90s stuff. So if you like that kind of sound, I'm sure you're more than familiar with Madonna and her album Erotica. But if not, then check it out. Erotica's a brilliant song, one that instantly takes me back to that early 90s, one of many. And you can just put it on, you can just chill out. Best listened to with the lights off, and maybe the Christmas lights on or something like that in the background, but as dark as possible, and just chill out and just let your mind kind of take you back to either the early 90s or just anywhere. Really good kind of music. I love that stuff. And like I say, it's really pushed me into that acid house music. Bizarrely, I never thought I'd link acid house to Madonna, but there is kind of a tentative link there, kind of. So 3 more, but the last 2 I'm going to briefly talk about. But yeah, the last proper one is Queen, and it's Innuendo. Now, I've wanted to get into Queen for a long, long time. Now, I've listened, obviously I know all the classics, I know all the hits, it's hard not to. I've had several records or CDs over the years, but it's only really now that I'm properly starting to get into them. So it's not that I'm not familiar with them, obviously, I know all the songs, like I say, but in terms of sitting down and listening to their albums and judging them as an adult, I'm doing that now, and this for me is just so incredible. Now, what I wanted to do for my first vinyl Queen album, I wanted to get an album which I thought could sum Queen up. But I thought, well, what do I do? Do I get the first album that they made? Do maybe I go with one of the middle ones? Because that could kind of, you know, tell a story of all their early stuff that they did. Sorry, I keep moving this screensaver in the background on this controller. Just annoys me when it's playing yellow in the background. So yeah, I thought, do I want to get one which is in the middle of their discography because it kind of sums up their early career and maybe shows where they're going? Or do I get one right at the end which kind of encapsulates everything, really? And in the end, I thought I'd go with this. Again, a bit of a sad tale in a sense that obviously Freddie Mercury died in 1991. This came out in 1991. So, but the reason why I got that is partially for that reason, because I knew that he put his all into this record, and I thought it would be a really powerful, sad in places, but also a celebration. So I don't regret this at all. This is an amazing purchase and an amazing album, and I'm really glad that I've started with Innuendo. I mean, like I say, he put his all into it. From all accounts, it was very, very difficult for him. Difficult for me to speak, clearly, but difficult for him at the time to record the album because of all the illness that he was going through. And so to get so much energy and emotion and power from his lyrics is just unbelievable. But what more, could you expect from Freddie Mercury? The ultimate showman, really, and someone so dedicated to his work. It's incredible. So yeah, I could read off all the songs. Innuendo, the album, the track title, I guess, is a fantastic album, a fantastic track. I'm Going Slightly Mad. Headlong is a really good record, a good song. All God's People. These Are the Days of Our Lives is quite a sad one in a sense. The Show Must Go On is a really fitting way to end the record. Again, a really powerful song. And then you get a couple of silly songs on there in a sense, like Delilah, written about his cat. It seems a little bit out of place, but it's still quite a good kind of little fun song, I suppose. A really, really good song is Ride the Wild Wind. Now, that is brilliant. It's almost like a classic Queen track that could be on an album from maybe something like maybe The Miracle. Bear in mind, I'm not an enormous Queen fan in the sense that I'm not massively familiar with all their albums, just all their hits. But it sounds like that kind of era, like kind of a maybe late 80s kind of thing. But Ride the Wild Wind is amazing. It's an amazing track. You've got to check it out. It may be one that I put in the description box below. So yeah, fantastic record, and Queen were a brilliant band. A band which I remember a couple of friends of mine back in the day, back in the early 90s, when Freddie Mercury was still alive and they were still making records, of course, like Innuendo. A couple of friends of mine called Chris, two Chris's, two different Chris's, both absolutely loved Queen. I wasn't really into them back then, because back then in the early 90s, so it's like 12, 13, 14, depending on what year we're talking, of course, you know, I would have been still into my pop music, but maybe the things like The Shaman were coming around. I was into them, Too Unlimited, Madonna with, you know, Erotica, all that kind of stuff. I was still very much in that kind of pop music. Whatever was in the charts, basically, was my kind of thing. And then maybe a year or so after that, I started to get into Suede, and then Blur, and so on and so forth. But Queen, not really. I loved all the songs in terms of Radio Gaga and, well, all the hits, Bohemian Rhapsody, and etc., etc. But I never really got into them. But I am now, which is better late than never. But yeah, Innuendo, fantastic album, well worth checking out. And then the last two I'm going to very quickly talk about, because I did two standalone pickup videos for these. Sorry, not pickup videos, unboxings, if you like. But I didn't show them on a separate pickup vid. So that first one, which I did about 2 months ago, ish, give or take, is Liam Gallagher, which As You Were, which is a really good record. This is like the deluxe edition. Like I said, I did an unboxing for this and that one, so if you want to check that out in more detail, then please feel free. But yeah, a really good album, his debut album, essentially. Some brilliant tracks, Wall of Glass, Bold, For What It's Worth, what else do I like? Come Back to Me is a really good song. Chinatown's pretty good, I Get By. It's a really good album, it really is. The thing that I'd say is obviously many of these tracks are co-written, so they're not just, you know, solo, if you like, Liam Gallagher songs. I think 2 or 3 of them are, but most of them are co-written. So clearly he's still an amateur, if in the sense, an amateur Liam Gallagher, an amateur in the sense of, you know, writing his own songs. He's just getting used to that. But it's a really strong start to his solo career, an excellent album. And I think recently haven't Liam and Noel had a bit of a patch up, which is good to see. I think on Twitter that they're going to get together for Christmas dinner and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be nice, you know, if Oasis get back together. I'm not desperate to see them get back together. I know that sounds selfish, but, you know, I remember them from when they were, and I saw them live and all that kind of stuff. So in a way, I'm not that bothered if they don't get back together. But if you give me the choice, then, well, yeah, why not? But more importantly, I guess, not that it really affects me, but when you look on the outside and you see two brothers, especially famous ones, or anyone for that matter, bickering so publicly, it's just like, oh, pack it in. You know, seriously. So it's nice to see them patching that up if that's what's happening. And then that may lead on to an Oasis reunion, probably will, in all honesty. And speaking of Oasis, Liam and Noel, we've got Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, and this is his 3rd album. As I say, did the unboxing for it, which came with the picture disc and the lenticular print, as well as a CD, and maybe there's 1 or 2 other bits and pieces. So yeah, Noel Gallagher's 3rd album, and for me this is brilliant. There's a lot of controversy about it, a lot of people not being massively into it. I know Holy Mountain, which was the first single, got a lot of stick off people, particularly on Twitter, keyboard warriors. I really liked it the first time I heard it. It's not that I really liked it, but what I thought was it was unusual. But I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. It was like, it's all right, but it's unusual. So yeah, but I think it's a brilliant record. Songs like Keep On Reaching, It's a Beautiful World is really good. She Taught Me How to Fly, If Love Is the Law. Even The Man Who Built the Moon is just a fantastic way to end the record. Well, technically, end credits ends the record. But the last proper full song, The Man Who Built the Moon, is really, really good. So a really strong album, but it's Noel Gallagher, what do you expect? It's his 3rd album. He wrote basically 99% of Oasis songs, and he's experienced. He's a pro. He's the man. He's the chief. You know, like I said before, Liam, when it comes to songwriting, is a bit of an amateur. But that will come in time. He will get better, of course he will, even though he's, 45 now? But we're always learning. Every single day that passes, we're learning, we're improving. So, but yeah, Noel Gallagher, he rips people off, George Michael. amongst everybody else, but he's a bit of a genius, you've got to be honest. So that's that. If I pick these all up and then pointlessly show you them all together, a bit of a mixture of spine colourage going on there. So yeah, thank you for watching. There's quite a few records that I've got, and these Christmas ones, the Christmas stroke winter ones, the Kylie one, the Sting one, probably not ones I'll be listening to from January onwards until it gets to December, and then I stick them on. That's what I usually do. That's what most of us do, isn't it, when it comes to Christmas records? Anyway, until my next vid, whenever that is, my next music video will probably be maybe about 2 or 3 weeks from now. My next video for something else will be before the end of the year. It might be a diary vid or something, we'll see. But anyway, have a fantastic Christmas, or what's left of the Christmas period, and yeah, have a brilliant new year. Thanks for watching. See you later.